Greetings and welcome once again to my new calculus channel. My name is John Gabriel, and today I want to talk about mainstream math cranks and trolls. Um, it's an important subject because what it shows is how people can get into a groupthink and they don't listen. Excuse me, they don't listen anymore to any outsider. And although I've had mainstream training, I do consider myself an outsider because I've never agreed with most of their ideas. Um, for example, their calculus formulation is flawed. They don't have a definition of number. They've got foundations which are broken to bits, set theory, topology, ZFC axioms, all that nonsense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a stream of comments that I've engaged in and show you the kind of thing I've come up against most of my life. It's actually tragic that it's like that, but what can one do, right? You just have to do the best with the cards you're given. So let's start. Now, I created this video and uploaded it. It's called Is Zero a Number? Very comprehensive video, about 21 minutes long. And I posted a very comprehensive comment with uh, detailed articles related to the subject matter in the video. And of course, the first person posts a very good comment of what he took away from the video. A number is a name given to a measure that describes a ratio of magnitudes. And of course, that ratio must have the property of quotientness, otherwise there is no number. And then, of course, another person comments, you have expanded the definition of numbers from being only counting numbers to include fractions. Now, I don't know whether this guy was being genuine or not, but he says most people, he appears to be genuine. He says most people have expanded their definition of numbers. Well, to be honest with you, I don't even think he has the definition of number, but he thinks he has. So my response to him is that no, I have not expanded counting numbers to include fractions. Why? Because counting numbers are fractions. What is the definition of a counting number, people? It's a fraction where the numerator is an exact multiple of the denominator. So let's pull up a little pad again. So let's do that. So if we have that, just like that, let's snip off the sides. We have that, okay? Now, if we grab that and just get another, right. So if we had a ratio like that, then this line, this part of the ratio, measures this one exactly, right? And we call that measure by the name of 1 over 1 or just 1. Now, if we had to place that line next to itself just like that, okay, I'm not going to worry about getting it dead right, then we could measure this like this and say, we're going to call that the measure of that ratio. You're going to call that 2 over 1 or just 2. So as you can see, the counting numbers are fractions, okay? Very much so. They're just a smaller part of numbers. which are all fractions. There are no numbers which are not fractions. So I started trying to help him, and I said, I know what you mean, but that doesn't make your ideas correct. If you want to talk about constants like pi, square root 2, etc., then you should refer to them as constants, okay, that are realized from failed measures of ratios, such as circle circumference, square diagonal, square side. So what is a failed measure? Well, if I had if I had something like this, where these two lines are equal, okay, this 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 line is equal to this line, like that, and I try to measure the hypotenuse, this guy here, okay, this guy here, try to measure this guy here using either of these sides, right, either of them, I'm going to run into a problem, because if I take this guy, the hypotenuse, and I do this, oops, and I do this, and then I take the side, which is this guy here, okay, and I flip it. Didn't mean to do that. I meant to do it. I'm still doing it wrong. Flip horizontal. I don't know why it's not doing it right. Okay, but if I take this side here and I do that, like that, then this ratio here does not have quotientness. What that means is I can't take this guy, which will measure this part, but it will not measure this exactly. Okay, see, we'll do that much, and then you still have this part here. Okay, so it doesn't measure it exactly. So I'd have to further refine my measurement if I wanted to try and get a measure here. I'd have to divide this part here that you're looking at into more equal pieces. I can tell it's roughly about zero 0.4 of this part, but it's not an exact measure. And the more I divide it, the more accurate the measure becomes. So I was trying to help him realize that he's been led astray by highly stupid math academics with significant power at large institutions such as MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, and Cambridge. And he obviously didn't look at the detail section here, where he would have found out a whole lot more if he did that. And he would have known from the very first article, this article here, which is very recently written, uh, exactly how we realize the concept of number. Okay, so this tells you how to realize, and I'll place a link to it, so don't worry. In any case, the discussion continues, and then somebody else, I'm not going to carry on with him, but because he's a little very confused, or a lot very confused. But then somebody else jumps in here, and I'm sure this guy's a troll. He says, would you call pi, defined as the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, a number or not? So there's a lot of problems with that question, and it shouts troll from miles away. And let me tell you why it shouts troll. Well, first of all, we don't define things like pi. They are defined, and obviously it's not defined as the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's defined as a constant that is realized from the failed measure of a circle circumference to its diameter. There's a big difference. And of course, as I tried to explain to the previous guy, there are many constants that represent pi, but none of them are pi. 3, 3.1, 22/7, all these here. They're all constants, but none of them are pi. And it doesn't matter how far you go with the significant digits. You'll never get pi. There is no number pi. It's a myth. There is no number square root 2. It's a myth. There is no number e. It's garbage. There is a constant e, but and the constants themselves are numbers, but they don't represent the full measure of those ratios. Okay? And I've shown you how in past videos these constants are realized from ratios. So anyway, I know this guy's a troll, but I engage him anyway. So I said I would call pi the constant that is realized from the attempted measure of the ratio. And so I engage him continuously. And of course, this other guy also pops in, wherever he is. I think he might be genuine. But honestly, I don't know and I don't care. Now, the conversation reduces to Anders Vold Johansson. Obviously, a Scandinavian lad. Don't know from what Scandinavian country, but anyway. So he begins to ask questions that are typically those a troll asks, because a lot of these questions that he begins asking are answered in the very first article and the ones that follow. Okay? So he continues to ask questions, and I oblige. And again, I point him to this article where I show him what the abstract unit means. He just totally ignores that. He's not listening. He's saying he just cares about what he thinks. He says a measurement is physical, isn't it? No, a measurement is not necessarily physical. It can be, but when we talk about numbers, we move away from physical measure. That is, we use an abstract unit. So let's see now. I've just told him about an abstract unit. Now look at what he writes here. He says, do you mean that if you divide a ruler into millimeters and measure two pieces of wood with it, the ratio of the measured results in a whole millimeters will be an exact number? So, I mean, he's not even listening to what I'm saying. And the conversation continues. So finally, I get sick of responding. So I've got a specially trained AI, and I put his. He was asking me what prompts I put, so I put his actual prompts into the AI, and the AI, believe it or not, says exactly where this guy's experiencing problems, and it thinks the same way as I do in his case. So it gives a long explanation saying he implicitly accepts a mainstream idea that ratios exist as completed values. He also thinks that pi can be defined without measure. Okay, and he thinks measurement must mean physical measurement, and he fails to understand that in not my theory but the correct theory, every ratio only gains meaning through the act of measure, and numbers are realized measures. And since the ratio that pi is realized from has no quotientness, its measure repeatedly fails. So pi is not a number, only a constant represented by rational approximations. And then he comes back after all this and he says, what exact prompt did you use? So I had just answered his previous one, and then I said, that's immaterial. Do you want me to give you a lesson on chatbot prompts? I don't have time for this. So then all of a sudden, he says, no results from Pilikotita in Google search, because I told him that quotientness comes from the Greek word pilikotita. But he doesn't care about that. So he does a Google search. I mean, you should never just go by what you find on a Google search. It's actually better to go to ChatGPT than to do a Google search, by the way. And Gemini, Google's AI, is not as good as ChatGPT or Claude. It's actually the worst AI out there. It hasn't caught up, and I don't believe it ever will. Go to ChatGPT or Claude, they're better AIs. So, and then he starts giving me a lesson on Greek. So, I mean, you know, it gets to a point, and then of course he comes back after about a few minutes. He says, "I looked up and I found Book Five, Proposition Three, before you replied about Pilokota, which is totally wrong." But so he's confirmed now that he's a troll because he said early on that he doesn't know. He tried to Google it and he couldn't find it, etc., etc. So he gets several things wrong in this last response. It's not a proposition, it's a definition, and that phonetic spelling is wrong. It's pilikotita with the emphasis on ko. And by the way, even mainstream Greek math academics don't understand that concept because they've never understood definition three. They think it's just a relationship between the magnitudes. Nope, it's not a relationship just between the magnitudes. And my article called Numerus Abstractus, okay, this one here, et eternus, Numerus Abstractus et eternus, which I've written in English and Greek, is to teach these morons what pilikotita means and why they've gotten everything about number wrong, okay, including fractions, including just about everything else. So to learn more, you have to read these articles. And what I suggest you do is you go to the links, study them, and that way you'll become wise. Now, I don't know why trolls do the things they do. Honestly, I mean, technically speaking, I can say that it gives them pleasure to just get on everybody else's nerves. But mainstream math trolls, especially the ones from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, all those Ivy League unis, they're the worst kind of trolls that one can come across. Um, they're worse because they don't know any mathematics. I mean, their PhDs are based on anti mathematical rot like set theory, topology, group theory, everything that isn't mathematics. So, what is mathematics? The abstract science of measure and number. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, become a subscriber, click like, follow me on Academia.edu. It's this site here. Yes, and it's not going to hurt you to subscribe. After all, I'm revealing so much knowledge to you, and I'm not getting paid anything for it. And I've been excommunicated from the mainstream community because I stand for truth. I stand for that which is light, beauty, irrefutable, not the bullshit of George Cantor or ZFC axioms, beliefs, or anything like that. I am a real mathematician. Your math lecturers are fucking morons. Now, that's pretty much it. I'm John Gabriel, and this is a new calculus channel. Till next time, goodbye.